Hey everyone, this is Mr. Zach and welcome to our online children ministry program at Chinese Christian Union Church. In case you all have forgotten what we have been doing in these past few weeks, we have been answering the big question of who is God? And talk about who is God, who God is, but also what God does as well. So with our lesson today, we will learn that God is always with us and He will never leave us when we come and follow Him. So let's get into our Bible lesson. Our main character today that we will be talking about is another prophet, which again, if you guys forgot what prophet means from last week's video, is a prophet is a messenger from God or people who God spoke to so that they may tell other people around them what God has said. Usually prophets will talk to kings or the masses of people around them or God's people, the Israelites. But our prophet today is named Elisha. Not Elijah. That was a prophet we learned about last week, but Elisha, not Elijah. And forgive me if I mix up the name because sometimes when I say Elisha, it does sound like Elijah. But just remember that I'll be referring to Elisha, which was actually, ironically, he was mentored by Elijah. So Elijah was the teacher of our main character today, Elisha, okay? In which we will be reading from 2 Kings verses 6 to 8 to 23. In which I will be reading some of the main parts of the Bible lesson also while going over it as well, okay? So let's get into our Bible passage. Our story today is about two countries that were in constant battle with one another, Israel and Aram. Israel was full of God's chosen people called the Israelites because they were the descendants of Abraham, who we talked about a few weeks ago, and this included our main character today and our prophet Elisha. These two countries were always battling, and the king of Aram decided to make a top secret battle plan to attack the Israelite people or the soldiers in hopes of hurting them and weakening their forces. But as Elisha was God's messenger to the Israel people, God told King Aram's secret battle plan to Elisha, in which he told the king of Israel of that time, in which the Israelites' army were able to avoid getting hurt or being ambushed by the king's Aram's army. So from that, let's do a little demonstration on kind of what happened. I'm going to think of a number in my head from 1 to 1,000. And you guys will guess or maybe even know which number I'm thinking of because of maybe some hints I'll give you. But you guys will be guessing what number I will be thinking of. So we'll do this maybe 3 times with 3 different numbers. So let's start, okay? So round 1. Let me think of what number I want. Okay, and I'll let you guys guess what it is in 3, 2, 1. Okay, well, if you didn't know what number I was thinking of, it was 222. So, nice job for those who got it, and those that didn't get it, I'm not sure how you didn't. But, maybe we'll do it again, round 2, and maybe I'll make it a little bit easier, and maybe there won't be a, thought bubble, get out of here or something. So, this time, let's see if you guys can guess what number I'm thinking of. And maybe if you look in the corner, you might see the answer. So let me think of my number right now in 3, 2, 1. Okay, I have my number, okay? So if you can guess, it is 485. So whoever got that number, good job. And let's do our last one, which I'll try to make it even harder. But you guys might be able to guess which number it is as well, okay? So I would say you have to look at the screen really closely and be really fast. You might have to play it in slow motion or you might have to rewind it to see the number when I am thinking of it, okay? So let me think of my number, okay? And I'll let you guys guess. Let me think of it, okay? And I'll let you guys think of my number and I'll give you guys 3 seconds to guess. So 3, 2, 1, 0. And the number I thought of was number 777. Okay, so as you guys figured it all out, you guys should have been able to see all the numbers on the screen somewhere. And I didn't give you the answers, but If you guys look back, you can probably find all the numbers somewhere on the screen, somewhere when I was thinking. But let's get back to our lesson. Okay, so from that demonstration, you guys should have known what number I was thinking of before I even said it. Just like how God told Elisha the plans of King Aram was going to do towards the Israelites. And thus the Israelites were able to avoid being hurt and being in battle. Though, another way to explain it, if you didn't understand the demonstration or you still don't understand how they knew in advance, is by sports. Think of it like this. How would it help you to know what your opponents were going to do in advance? So, for example, think about soccer, or some people call it football to some. And if you guys were the goalie, and if the opponent was going to shoot towards you, most of the time you would almost have to guess in which way they would shoot. But if you already knew where they would shoot, maybe toward like the bottom corner, it would be very easy to block that shot if you knew every time where the opponent would shoot. And so that is kind of what happened back then in Bible times, of how Elisha was informed by God by the plans of King Aram had in battle. And in battle, when you ambush someone, and you get a big advantage when you ambush someone or sneak up on your enemies and catch them by surprise. But the army from Aram couldn't do that because God told their plan to Elisha every time, because God was always with them. And he always knew that what the army of Aram was planning. Just imagine how the king of Aram must have felt in this time. He had a top secret plan which was with his most trusted officials, and still the Israelites were able to avoid every single plan they had. So let me read from 2 Kings chapter 6 verse 11 to see how the king of Aram felt. This enraged the king of Aram. He summoned his officials and demanded of them, "Tell me, which of us is on the side of the king of Israel?" The king of Aram was furious that all his plans didn't work. He even thought that someone betrayed him and told the king of Israel all their plans. But the officer's response was that they said Elisha was the one that told the king of Israel everything and knew all their plans every time. They didn't understand how, but they knew that Elisha was a prophet of God. The king of Aram found out about Elijah and was pretty mad. And meanwhile, Elisha and his servant were in the city of Dothan, in which the king of Aram sent an army to him, in verses 14 to 15, as I read. Then he sent horses and chariots and a strong force there. They went by night and surrounded the city. When the servant of the man of God got up and went out early that next morning, an army with the horse and chariot had surrounded the city. "Oh no, my lord, what shall we do?" the servant asked. As the army surrounded the city of Dothan, Elisha's servant was afraid. But Elisha knew that God is always with us, in which he said in verse 16, "Don't be afraid," the prophet answered. "Those who are with us are more than those who are with them." Elijah was talking about God's army being with them. That means an army of angels and fiery chariots with fiery horses. And here the servant was confused because he didn't see anything around them. So Elisha prayed that God would open his servant's eyes to see God's army, in which God did. And the servant was able to see God's army all around the city. Though Elisha also prayed another prayer, that God would strike the enemy's army with blindness, in which God answered, as we see in verses 18 to 19. As the enemy came down towards him, Elisha prayed to the Lord, strike this army with blindness. So he struck them with blindness, as Elijah has asked. Elisha told them, "This is not the road, and this is not the city. Follow me, and I will lead you to the man you are looking for." And he led them to Samaria. As we saw in verse 19, we saw that Elisha then tricked them into going to a different place in which they were surrounded by the Israelites' army. But instead of fighting and battling over them, Israel gave them a meal and sent them home. And from that, the two countries stopped fighting with each other because they listened to Elisha of what God had told him to do. From our lesson today, we see that Elisha trusted in God to protect him and guide him. because he knew that God is always with us. And we have to remind ourselves that God is with us as well. Think of it like this. I'm sure you all are not able to visit many people around you due to this pandemic, and I want you all to do is count on your hand maybe 5 people you wish to see right now and wish you could hang out with them during this time. Okay, so think of 5 people that you wish to be with right now or maybe later on. Okay, so unlike those 5 people, you are not able to see them in person because of this pandemic. We know that God is always with us and that he will always be there for us when we need him in our lives. So just like how the servant was blind to see God's army, we sometimes are blind to see God with us. And though God doesn't show himself to us often, we can see that God is always with us by the many things around us, from how he protects us, how he provides for us, and how he loves us as well, from his son's ultimate sacrifice of dying on the cross for us as well, from dying of our sins. So as I close, let our Bible verse of this week remind you that God is always with you and you do not need to be afraid because God is on your side. So Joshua 1:9 says, "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." Let you all be strong and courageous during this time and know that God is always with you when you open your eyes and your hearts to him. Okay? So I'll see you guys around.